The emergency custody papers were still warm from the printer when I realized my sister had vanished with my 3-month-old daughter. My husband's secure Pentagon phone was buzzing nonstop, but for the first time in his decorated military career, Admiral James Mitchell couldn't command his way out of this nightmare. Because sometimes the enemy isn't across an ocean. Sometimes they're sitting at your family dinner table. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. 3 weeks earlier, life looked completely different. I was Rebecca Mitchell, married to one of the youngest admirals in Navy history, living in our pristine Arlington home with our newborn daughter, Emma. James had just been appointed as Deputy Chief of Naval Operations, a position that put him directly under the Secretary of the Navy. Our life was structured, secure, and exactly what I'd dreamed of since we met at the Naval Academy 15 years ago. My sister Vanessa had moved in with us 2 months before Emma was born. She'd just gone through a messy divorce in Phoenix and needed somewhere to land while she figured out her next steps. James wasn't thrilled about the arrangement, but Vanessa was my only family left after our parents died in that car accident 5 years back. She seemed grateful, helpful even, constantly offering to help with baby preparations and household tasks. The first red flag should have been how obsessed Vanessa became with my pregnancy. She attended every doctor's appointment, insisted on setting up the nursery, and started buying baby clothes before I'd even hit the second trimester. When I mentioned feeling overwhelmed by her involvement, James just shrugged and said military families stick together. But Vanessa wasn't a military family. She was barely holding her own life together. Emma arrived on a Tuesday morning in February, and everything changed. Vanessa was at the hospital before James could even get there from his emergency briefing at the Pentagon. She held Emma before I did, took the first photos, and somehow convinced the nurses she was the baby's aunt who should be included in all the medical discussions. When I tried to establish boundaries about visiting hours and holding time, Vanessa accused me of being hormonal and selfish. The next few weeks blurred together in a haze of sleepless nights and constant tension. James was pulling 18-hour days preparing for a massive naval exercise in the Pacific, leaving me alone with Vanessa most of the time. She'd taken over all the baby care duties without asking, feeding Emma, changing diapers, even moving the crib into her room so I could get better sleep. When I protested, she'd remind me how exhausted I looked, and how Emma seemed calmer with her. Things escalated when James returned from a 3-day strategy session at Norfolk Naval Base. He found Vanessa giving Emma a bath at midnight, singing lullabies in the dimly lit bathroom like it was the most natural thing in the world. When he asked what was happening, Vanessa explained that Emma had been fussy, and she didn't want to wake me. But Emma's room was on the opposite side of the house from ours. There was no way we would have heard her crying. That night, James and I had our first real conversation about Vanessa's behavior. He'd noticed things too, how she'd positioned herself between visitors and Emma during the baby shower his colleagues threw, how she'd started referring to Emma as our baby in casual conversation, and how she'd somehow gotten herself listed as an emergency contact at the pediatrician's office. We decided it was time for Vanessa to find her own place. The conversation with Vanessa didn't go as planned. Instead of understanding our position, she became defensive and then aggressive. She accused me of being an unfit mother, pointing to how tired I looked, how often I cried, and how I'd struggled with breastfeeding. She claimed James was never around, and that Emma needed stability, not parents who were too busy with military careers to focus on their child. The argument escalated until James, using his command voice, told her she had 2 weeks to move out. Vanessa's behavior became erratic after that ultimatum. She'd disappear for hours without explanation, then return with expensive baby equipment we hadn't asked for. She started documenting everything, taking photos of me when I looked exhausted, recording video of Emma crying while I struggled to soothe her, and keeping detailed notes about our daily routines. When I confronted her about the documentation, she claimed she was just making memories for her scrapbook. The breaking point came on a Thursday morning when I discovered Vanessa had been giving Emma formula throughout the night despite knowing I was exclusively breastfeeding. When I found the empty bottles hidden in her closet, along with a notebook filled with detailed observations about my inadequate maternal responses and concerning attachment patterns, I knew we were dealing with something beyond normal family boundary issues. James came home early that day after I called him in tears. We found Vanessa in Emma's room packing a diaper bag with enough supplies for several days. When we asked where she was going, she calmly explained that she was taking Emma to visit her friend Sarah in Baltimore, a friend we'd never heard of and who didn't exist according to the phone number Vanessa provided. The confrontation that followed revealed the depth of Vanessa's delusion. She genuinely believed that James and I were unfit parents, that our military lifestyle was damaging to Emma's development, and that she was the only one who truly understood what the baby needed. She'd been building a case in her mind for weeks, collecting evidence of our failures and planning to prove that Emma belonged with her. We managed to talk Vanessa down that night, but James immediately called his security contact at the Pentagon. Given his clearance level and position, any threat to his family was treated as a potential security risk. Within hours, we had a discreet protection detail, and Vanessa was under informal surveillance. But we made a critical mistake. We assumed that professional oversight would be enough to prevent her from acting on her obsessions. 2 days later, James left for an emergency meeting with the Joint Chiefs about escalating tensions in the South China Sea. The meeting was classified and urgent enough that he couldn't. The social worker arrived at 7:30 a.m., accompanied by 2 police officers and an emergency court order that turned my world upside down. James was already at his morning briefing, his phone locked away in the Pentagon's secure communication facility, where personal calls couldn't reach him. I stood in my doorway, holding Emma, watching Vanessa emerge from behind the official vehicles with a satisfied smile that would haunt my nightmares. The court document was thorough and damning. According to the filing, Emma was in immediate danger due to parental neglect, substance abuse, and domestic violence. The evidence package included photos of me looking exhausted and disheveled, audio recordings of Emma crying for extended periods, and witness testimony from Vanessa describing incidents that had either never happened or been completely twisted from reality. The most devastating piece was a video Vanessa had secretly recorded during one of my worst postpartum days. In it, I was sobbing while Emma cried in her crib, and I was clearly overwhelmed to the point of paralysis. What the video didn't show was that I'd just received news that James's deployment to the Pacific had been extended by 3 months, or that Emma had been colicky for 5 straight days. Vanessa had waited for my breaking point and captured it perfectly. The social worker, Mrs. Patricia Henderson, was professional but firm. She explained that emergency custody had been granted to Vanessa pending a full investigation. The decision was temporary, she assured me, but Emma would be removed immediately for her safety. When I tried to explain that Vanessa was unstable and had been exhibiting concerning behavior, Henderson pointed to Vanessa's prepared documentation and her apparent status as the only family member expressing concern for the child's welfare. While Henderson conducted her interview, Vanessa efficiently packed Emma's belongings like she'd been preparing for this moment for weeks. She had lists of Emma's feeding schedule, medical information, and even detailed notes about sleep patterns and behavioral preferences. To the outside observer, she appeared to be the responsible, organized caregiver, stepping in to protect a vulnerable infant. I called James's emergency line, but reaching him through Pentagon security protocols would take hours. By the time the message filtered through classified communication channels and he could respond, Vanessa would be long gone with Emma. The system designed to protect national security was now preventing a father from protecting his own child. The transfer happened with clinical efficiency. Henderson documented Emma's condition, photographed the nursery, and conducted a brief health assessment, while Vanessa provided running commentary about the child's needs and routines. When I tried to nurse Emma one last time before they left, Henderson gently but firmly suggested it might be better to avoid disrupting the child's adjustment to temporary care. Watching Vanessa buckle Emma into a car seat she'd somehow acquired overnight was surreal. She spoke to my daughter in soft, loving tones, promising adventures and stability in their new temporary home at her friend's house in Baltimore. Emma, only 3 months old and unaware of the legal drama surrounding her, simply slept peacefully through the entire ordeal. After they left, I had exactly 47 minutes before James's security detail arrived at our house. Captain Rodriguez had managed to get word to James about the emergency custody situation, and the Admiral was exercising every protocol available to handle what was now classified as a potential security breach. When high-ranking military officials face family crises, the Department of Defense takes notice. James arrived home like a hurricane, still in his dress uniform from the interrupted Joint Chiefs meeting. His first call was to our family attorney, Margaret Sinclair, who specialized in military family law. His second was to Admiral Patricia Hayes, his direct superior, who needed to be briefed on any situation that might compromise James's security clearance or effectiveness in his Pentagon role. The legal reality was sobering. Emergency custody orders are designed to protect children in immediate danger, and overturning them requires proving either procedural errors or fraudulent evidence. Vanessa had played the system perfectly, presenting herself as the concerned relative while building a convincing case for our unfitness as parents. The fact that James's high-security position meant he was frequently unavailable only strengthened her argument about Emma's need for stable, present caregivers. Margaret Sinclair arrived within 2 hours, bringing bad news. Vanessa had hired Thomas Crawford, a family court attorney known for aggressive tactics in custody cases. Crawford specialized in cases involving military families, understanding exactly how to exploit the unique challenges of dual-career couples with security clearances and deployment schedules. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday, giving us 5 days to build our countercase. But Vanessa had disappeared completely. The Baltimore address she'd provided led to a vacant apartment, her phone went straight to voicemail, and even her divorce attorney in Phoenix claimed no knowledge of her current whereabouts. She'd vanished with Emma into a network of resources we couldn't track. James's Pentagon connections became both an asset and a liability. The security office launched an immediate investigation, treating Emma's disappearance as a potential kidnapping with national security implications. Military police coordinated with local law enforcement, but their involvement also attracted unwanted attention from James's superiors, who questioned whether personal drama was affecting his professional judgment. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now back to where we left off. The media discovered the story on Thursday. Pentagon Admiral's family in custody battle scandal ran in the Washington Herald, complete with photos of our Arlington home and speculation about military families and child welfare. James's position made the story irresistible to defense reporters who'd been looking for angles on military leadership accountability. By Friday, the story had national legs. Morning talk shows debated military family stability. Social media exploded with opinions about working mothers and absent fathers. And James found himself called into emergency meetings with Pentagon public affairs officials who needed to manage the narrative around one of their highest-ranking officers. The pressure was crushing from every direction. James faced potential damage to his career and security clearance. I was dealing with postpartum depression exacerbated by the trauma of losing Emma, and we still had no idea where Vanessa had taken our daughter. The legal system that was supposed to protect families had been weaponized against us, and every day that passed made recovering Emma more complicated. Margaret Sinclair worked around the clock preparing our defense, but she needed something concrete to challenge Vanessa's evidence. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Captain Rodriguez's incident report about his conversation with Vanessa. His detailed documentation of her accusations and prepared presentation raised questions about premeditation that could undermine her credibility as a concerned relative acting in good faith. Sunday night, James made a decision that would define everything that followed. Using contacts from his intelligence background, he initiated an unofficial investigation into Vanessa's activities and whereabouts. The decision violated several protocols and potentially compromised his security clearance, but he was no longer thinking as a Pentagon official. He was thinking of a father who would do anything to bring his daughter home. The call came at 3 a.m. Monday morning. The voice on the other end belonged to Detective Lisa Martinez from the Richmond Police Department, and her words changed everything. They'd found Vanessa's rental car abandoned in a Walmart parking lot with Emma's diaper bag still in the back seat, but no sign of either Vanessa or my daughter. Security footage showed Vanessa transferring Emma to another vehicle around midnight, but the license plate was obscured, and the driver remained unidentified. James was dressed and out the door within minutes, leaving me alone with questions that multiplied faster than answers. How had Vanessa managed to coordinate with someone else? Who was helping her stay hidden? And most terrifyingly, what lengths would she go to in order to keep Emma away from us? The Richmond discovery triggered a multi-state investigation that revealed disturbing details about Vanessa's activities over the past month. Her phone records showed dozens of calls to a private investigator named Derek Sullivan, who specialized in helping parents win custody battles through what he called aggressive evidence gathering. Sullivan's methods walked the line between legal and illegal, and his client list included several parents who'd successfully gained custody through manufactured crises. Margaret Sinclair arrived at the Richmond police station before we did, having driven through the night after Detective Martinez's call. She brought news that complicated everything further. Thomas Crawford, Vanessa's attorney, had filed a motion claiming that James's use of Pentagon resources to locate his daughter constituted government overreach and abuse of power. They were turning James's desperation to find Emma into another weapon against us. The police briefing painted a picture of careful planning that had been months in the making. Vanessa had been in contact with a network of individuals who helped parents rescue children from supposedly dangerous situations. The group operated through encrypted messaging apps and used safe houses across multiple states to hide children during custody disputes. They viewed themselves as child protection activists, but law enforcement classified them as an organized kidnapping operation. Detective Martinez explained that these networks had evolved to exploit weaknesses in the family court system. They coached clients on documenting evidence of parental unfitness, provided legal referrals to aggressive attorneys, and maintained resources for hiding children when legal methods were insufficient. Vanessa had found the perfect criminal organization to enable her delusions about saving Emma. The FBI joined the investigation Tuesday morning, elevating the case from local kidnapping to federal crime due to interstate transportation and James's security clearance. Special Agent Robert Chen had handled similar cases involving military families and understood both the legal complexities and national security implications. His involvement brought sophisticated investigative resources, but also increased scrutiny on James's conduct throughout the crisis. Agent Chen's team quickly identified inconsistencies in Vanessa's original custody filing that suggested coordination with Sullivan's organization. The timing of her evidence collection, the professional quality of her documentation, and her knowledge of legal procedures all indicated coaching from someone with extensive family court experience. More importantly, they discovered financial transactions showing Vanessa had paid Sullivan over $15,000 for his services. While the investigation expanded, James faced increasing pressure at the Pentagon. Admiral Hayes called him into a private meeting Wednesday morning to discuss the potential impact on his career and security clearance. The media attention had reached congressional staffers who were asking questions about military family stability and the vetting process for high-ranking officers. James's professional future now depended as much on recovering Emma as on how he handled the crisis. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Emma's pediatrician, Dr. Sarah Kim, who received a call Wednesday afternoon from someone claiming to be Emma's new guardian requesting medical records. The caller provided detailed information about Emma's birth weight, vaccination schedule, and a minor allergic reaction to a specific formula brand. Details only someone with intimate knowledge of Emma's care would know. Dr. Kim, who knew about the custody situation from news reports, immediately contacted authorities. The call had come from a prepaid phone, but cell tower data placed it in western Pennsylvania near the town of Somerset. More importantly, the caller had mentioned needing Emma's records for a wellness check with a local pediatrician, suggesting they planned to seek medical care in the area. Agent Chen's team focused their search on Somerset County, identifying potential safe houses and known associates of the Child Protection Network. The area's rural character and tight-knit communities made it ideal for hiding someone, but also meant strangers with infants would be noticed by locals. They began canvassing hotels, rental properties, and medical facilities with Emma's photo and description. Thursday brought devastating news. The preliminary hearing had been postponed due to Vanessa's failure to appear, but Crawford argued that his client's absence was due to fear for her safety after James allegedly used government resources to intimidate and harass her. The judge, Honor Patricia Williams, expressed concern about the military's involvement in what should be a civilian family matter, and ordered an investigation into James's conduct. James's world was collapsing from multiple directions. His security clearance was under review. Congressional staffers were demanding briefings about military family vetting procedures, and Admiral Hayes had quietly begun identifying potential replacements for his position. The crisis that started as a family custody dispute had become a career-ending scandal that threatened everything James had worked toward for 20 years. The emotional toll was becoming unbearable. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours straight since Emma's disappearance, and the combination of postpartum hormones and trauma had left me barely functional. James was trying to balance Pentagon responsibilities with the investigation, while dealing with his own guilt about not recognizing Vanessa's instability earlier. Our marriage was straining under pressure that would have challenged any couple. Margaret Sinclair provided the only source of hope during this period. Her investigation into Derek Sullivan had uncovered evidence of his involvement in similar cases across 6 states, including instances where children had been hidden for months before being recovered. She was building a federal case against the entire network that could result in serious prison time for everyone involved, including Vanessa. Friday afternoon brought the call we'd been desperately waiting for. A Somerset County Sheriff's deputy had spotted a woman matching Vanessa's description at a rural grocery store, carrying an infant and behaving nervously when approached by other customers. The store's security cameras confirmed it was Vanessa, and surveillance teams were positioning around the area where she'd been seen. But as law enforcement closed in on Somerset County, we received another devastating piece of news. The network Vanessa was working with had protocols for exactly this situation. When safe houses were compromised, they moved their rescued children to backup locations that could be hundreds of miles away. The grocery store sighting might have been our best chance to recover Emma, and we'd missed it by hours. Agent Chen's team found the Somerset safe house empty, except for evidence that Emma had been there recently. Formula bottles in the trash, baby clothes in the laundry, and a crib that still smelled like the lavender soap I used for Emma's baths. They'd evacuated within hours of the grocery store incident, disappearing back into a network designed to keep children hidden indefinitely. Saturday morning, as James prepared for what might be his final Pentagon briefing, we received a call that would change everything once again. The caller identified himself as Father Michael O'Brien from St. Catherine's Catholic Church in Wheeling, West Virginia. His voice carried urgency mixed with confusion as he explained why he was breaking the confidentiality of the confessional. A young woman had brought an infant to Saturday morning Mass, seeking emergency baptism and claiming the child was in mortal danger from abusive parents. Something about her story didn't align with his pastoral experience. Father O'Brien described how the woman had become increasingly agitated during their conversation, insisting that government officials were pursuing her and demanding that the church provide sanctuary. When he'd asked about the baby's parents, she'd launched into detailed accusations about military brutality, child endangerment, and corrupt Pentagon officials who were above the law. Her knowledge seemed rehearsed, almost scripted. The priest's suspicions deepened when the woman couldn't provide basic information about the infant's spiritual upbringing or explain why emergency baptism was necessary. She'd also insisted on using cash for the suggested donation and refused to provide identification for the church records. Most concerning, the baby appeared healthy and well cared for, contradicting claims of abuse and neglect. Agent Chen's team was airborne within an hour, coordinating with West Virginia State Police and local authorities in Wheeling. The small city's location near the Pennsylvania and Ohio borders made it perfect for someone planning multiple escape routes, but also limited the number of places where a stranger with an infant could blend in unnoticed. While federal agents descended on Wheeling, James faced his most challenging Pentagon meeting yet. Admiral Hayes had scheduled an emergency review of his security clearance with representatives from Navy intelligence and the Defense Security Service. They needed to determine whether his personal crisis compromised his ability to handle classified information and make critical national security decisions. The security review was brutal. Intelligence officers questioned James about his judgment in involving Pentagon resources, his wife's mental stability, and whether family drama might make him vulnerable to foreign influence or blackmail. They particularly focused on Vanessa's access to our home during James's classified briefings, and whether she might have observed or overheard sensitive information. James's responses were carefully measured. He acknowledged mistakes in handling the family situation, but emphasized that Emma's safety was his primary concern. He provided detailed timelines of his actions, explained the security protocols he'd followed, and submitted to enhanced background investigation procedures that would scrutinize every aspect of his personal and professional life. Meanwhile, I was experiencing my own nightmare in Wheeling. Agent Chen had requested that I accompany the team to potentially identify Emma and assist with her recovery, but being in the same city where my daughter was hidden while unable to reach her was psychological torture. Every passing hour meant Vanessa was likely moving further away with Emma, and every delay increased the chances we'd lose them again. The church provided crucial intelligence about Vanessa's network. Father O'Brien revealed that the woman had mentioned meeting, quote, other families in similar situations, and referenced a support group for parents fighting corrupt family court systems. She'd also inquired about churches in neighboring states that might provide similar sanctuary services, suggesting her next destination was already planned. Agent Chen's investigation uncovered alarming details about the scope of the criminal organization. Derek Sullivan's network had helped hide over 30 children across 12 states over the past 3 years, with some cases lasting longer than 18 months before resolution. The group operated like a modern underground railroad, but instead of helping slaves escape to freedom, they were enabling delusional parents to steal children from legitimate guardians. The financial structure was sophisticated. Parents paid substantial fees for different service levels. Basic documentation and legal coaching cost $5,000, safe house networks cost $15,000, and full identity changes for long-term hiding cost $50,000 or more. Vanessa had paid for the premium package, which explained her ability to disappear so completely. Saturday evening brought devastating news from multiple sources. Vanessa's credit cards showed charges at a gas station in Morgantown, West Virginia, but by the time authorities reached the location, she was gone. More concerning, Father O'Brien received another call from someone claiming to represent Vanessa, warning him that law enforcement was corrupt and that he should deny any contact with them. The psychological profile developed by FBI behavioral analysts painted a disturbing picture of Vanessa's mental state. They classified her as experiencing severe delusional thinking, centered around saving Emma from imagined threats. Her obsession had progressed beyond simple custody disputes into full psychotic episodes where she genuinely believed she was protecting Emma from life-threatening danger. Dr. Amanda Foster, the FBI's consulting psychologist, explained that Vanessa's delusions were likely triggered by her own recent divorce and feelings of powerlessness. Kidnapping Emma allowed her to feel in control and important while fulfilling distorted maternal instincts. The most dangerous aspect was that delusional kidnappers often escalated their behavior when cornered, potentially putting the child at greater risk. Sunday morning brought a terrifying development. Sullivan's phone records revealed communications with associates in Canada, suggesting the network had international resources for clients who needed to leave the country entirely. If Vanessa crossed the border with Emma, recovery would become exponentially more difficult and could take years through international legal channels. The Canadian connection explained why Vanessa had been asking Father O'Brien about churches near the northern border. Intelligence suggested she was moving toward crossing points in New York or Vermont, where the network had established relationships with facilitators who specialized in helping clients disappear internationally. James made another career-risking decision Sunday afternoon. He contacted Commander Sarah Walsh, a naval intelligence officer he'd worked with during counterterrorism operations, and requested assistance tracking Vanessa's movements using resources typically reserved for national security threats. Walsh agreed to help, understanding that sometimes personal loyalty superseded official protocols. Walsh's intelligence network identified a pattern in the network's operations. They moved clients through a series of predetermined checkpoints, each lasting no more than 48 hours, until reaching the final destination's safe houses. Vanessa's movements suggested she was following the northern route toward the Canadian border, with a likely crossing point near Lake Champlain. The investigation reached its most critical phase as multiple law enforcement agencies positioned resources along the suspected route. Border Patrol increased vigilance at crossing points, while state police coordinated checkpoint operations designed to appear routine, while specifically targeting vehicles matching Vanessa's profile. Monday morning, as James prepared for what could be his final Pentagon meeting, we received intelligence that would force the most important decision of our lives. Commander Walsh's intelligence breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Financial surveillance of Derek Sullivan's operation had revealed a payment to a woman named Linda Garrett, who operated what appeared to be a legitimate childcare center in Burlington, Vermont, just 15 miles from the Canadian border. The payment was coded as Emergency Placement Services, and cell tower data placed Vanessa's phone in the Burlington area less than 6 hours earlier. The decision we faced was agonizing. Agent Chen's team could coordinate with Vermont State Police for a standard law enforcement operation, but Sullivan's network had proven remarkably effective at detecting official surveillance. Alternatively, James could use his military contacts to arrange an unofficial reconnaissance mission that might locate Emma without alerting the criminals. But this approach would almost certainly end his Pentagon career and potentially result in criminal charges. James didn't hesitate. Within 2 hours, he'd contacted Lieutenant Colonel David Parks, a special operations veteran who owed James his career after a classified mission in Afghanistan went sideways 5 years earlier. Parks assembled a team of recently retired Navy SEALs, who officially operated a private security consulting firm but maintained the skills and equipment for more delicate operations. While James coordinated his unofficial team, I made my own difficult decision. Margaret Sinclair had warned that my presence near any potential recovery operation could complicate custody proceedings if Vanessa's lawyers claimed I'd participated in vigilante justice. But Emma had been missing for over a week, and I couldn't remain passive while others determined my daughter's fate. The Burlington area surveillance began Tuesday morning with Park's team establishing observation posts around Linda Garrett's facility. The childcare center occupied a converted farmhouse on the outskirts of town, with multiple buildings that could easily hide additional activities beyond licensed daycare services. Initial reconnaissance confirmed unusual security measures for a rural child care facility, including surveillance cameras and reinforced entry points. Agent Chen's parallel FBI operation focused on gathering evidence against the broader criminal network while monitoring our unofficial activities. Chen understood that successful prosecution required solid legal evidence, but he also recognized that Emma's immediate safety trumped procedural concerns. His team maintained surveillance from a distance, while Park's operators gathered actionable intelligence. The psychological pressure of being so close to Emma while unable to act immediately was devastating. Park's team reported observing children playing in the facility's yard, but identifying Emma from a distance without compromising the operation proved impossible. Every child's cry or laugh that carried across the rural landscape felt like it might be my daughter calling for help. Linda Garrett's background investigation revealed disturbing connections to the child trafficking network. She'd been investigated twice by Vermont Child Services for irregularities in her licensing documentation, but charges were never filed due to lack of evidence and her facility's strong reputation in the local community. Her financial records showed payments from Derek Sullivan dating back 18 months, suggesting a long-standing business relationship. Wednesday afternoon brought the confirmation we'd been waiting for. Parks' surveillance team photographed Vanessa entering the facility with an infant carrier, staying inside for over 2 hours before emerging alone. The timing suggested she was either transferring Emma to Linda Garrett's care or finalizing arrangements for the next phase of their escape plan. The sight of Vanessa without Emma triggered panic that nearly derailed our careful planning. If she'd already transferred Emma to another location, we might have missed our only opportunity to recover our daughter. Park's team had to restrain me from approaching the facility immediately, explaining that premature action could result in Emma being moved again before we could locate her. Technical surveillance revealed the facility's communication patterns. Linda Garrett made regular encrypted calls to numbers associated with Derek Sullivan's network, and cell tower analysis showed unusual data usage consistent with coordinating logistics for multiple clients. The facility was clearly serving as more than a simple hideout. It was functioning as a coordination center for the entire northern route operation. James received devastating news Wednesday evening. Admiral Hayes had been contacted by Defense Intelligence, who'd discovered his involvement with Park's unofficial operation through routine monitoring of Special Operations veterans' activities. James was ordered to report to Pentagon security immediately for what would likely be his final official meeting as Deputy Chief of Naval Operations. The confrontation at the Pentagon was career-ending. Admiral Hayes, speaking for Navy leadership, informed James that his actions had violated multiple regulations regarding use of military resources for personal matters. His security clearance was immediately suspended, and he was placed on administrative leave, pending a full investigation that could result in court-martial proceedings. But James had anticipated this outcome and prepared accordingly. Before reporting to the Pentagon, he'd transferred all operational control to Park's team and provided them with financial resources to continue the mission independently. His military career was over, but Emma's recovery remained possible through the network of loyal veterans who understood that some obligations transcended official protocols. Thursday morning, Park's team identified the critical weakness in Linda Garrett's operation. Vermont Child Services conducted monthly inspections of licensed facilities, and the next scheduled visit was Friday afternoon. If Emma was being hidden at the facility, Garrett would need to either move her before the inspection or have a cover story that explained an undocumented infant's presence. The solution came from an unexpected ally. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, Commander Walsh's sister, and a pediatric nurse practitioner, volunteered to pose as a Vermont Child Services inspector, conducting an unscheduled welfare check. Her legitimate medical credentials and official-looking documentation would allow her to enter the facility legally while searching for Emma. The plan carried enormous risks. If Garrett suspected deception, she could immediately alert Sullivan's network and trigger Emma's disappearance into an even deeper layer of the criminal organization. But if successful, Dr. Walsh could potentially identify Emma's location and condition while providing legal justification for law enforcement intervention. Friday morning, as Dr. Walsh prepared for her infiltration of the childcare facility, we received intelligence that changed everything. Derek Sullivan had been arrested in Phoenix on federal charges related to his involvement in child trafficking operations across multiple states. His arrest had triggered emergency protocols among his network associates, including immediate evacuation of all hidden children to backup locations. The race against time had begun. If Linda Garrett received word of Sullivan's arrest before Dr. Walsh could reach the facility, Emma would disappear again into a network designed to keep children hidden indefinitely. Everything we'd worked toward over the past week now depended on a narrow window of opportunity that was closing rapidly. As Dr. Walsh drove toward the facility, Park's surveillance team reported unusual activity. Multiple vehicles were arriving at the childcare center, and Garrett appeared to be preparing for immediate evacuation. The emergency protocols were already in motion, and we had minutes, not hours, to act before losing Emma forever. Dr. Walsh reached the facility with minutes to spare, her official Vermont Child Services credentials allowing her to bypass the security measures that would have stopped any other approach. Through her concealed communication device, we heard Linda Garrett's surprised but professional greeting as she explained the unscheduled inspection was part of a new state initiative following recent concerns about unlicensed childcare operations. Park's surveillance team watched from concealed positions as vehicles continued arriving at the facility's rear entrance. The evacuation was proceeding exactly as Sullivan's network protocols dictated, with associates arriving to transport children to backup locations before law enforcement could respond to Sullivan's arrest. The timing was surgical, suggesting years of practice and preparation. Inside the facility, Dr. Walsh began her systematic inspection while Garrett attempted to maintain normal operations despite obvious stress. The recorded conversation revealed Garrett's nervousness as she struggled to explain discrepancies in her enrollment records and justify the presence of additional staff members who weren't part of her normal licensing documentation. The breakthrough came when Dr. Walsh heard an infant crying from the facility's basement level. When she requested to inspect all areas used for childcare, Garrett initially refused, claiming the basement was used only for storage and wasn't part of the licensed facility. But Vermont regulations required inspection of all areas accessible to children, giving Dr. Walsh legal authority to insist on basement access. The basement revealed the true scope of Linda Garrett's operation. What appeared to be a legitimate childcare facility upstairs concealed a sophisticated hiding operation below, with multiple rooms equipped as temporary nurseries and living spaces for families evading law enforcement. The setup could accommodate dozens of people for extended periods, while maintaining the facade of normal business operations above. Dr. Walsh found Emma in the third basement room she inspected, along with 2 other infants who appeared to be part of the network's current client load. Emma was physically healthy, but clearly distressed, showing signs of disrupted sleep patterns and inconsistent care from multiple handlers. The sight of my 3-month-old daughter in a basement hideout, surrounded by evidence of criminal operations, nearly broke my composure even through the audio feed. The moment Dr. Walsh confirmed Emma's identity, Park's team moved into position, while Agent Chen's FBI units surrounded the facility. The coordination required split-second timing to prevent Garrett from triggering emergency protocols that would result in Emma's immediate evacuation through escape routes the network had undoubtedly prepared. Garrett's reaction when Dr. Walsh revealed her true identity was telling. Instead of surprise or confusion, she immediately reached for a concealed communication device, confirming her active participation in criminal operations rather than simple victimization by deceptive clients. Her attempt to warn network associates proved that the facility served as a central coordination point for the entire Northern Route operation. The tactical entry was executed flawlessly, with Park's team securing the facility's escape routes while FBI agents took control of the main building. Garrett was arrested without resistance, but her associates attempted to flee with 2 other hidden children before being intercepted by perimeter teams. The coordination between unofficial and official operations demonstrated the effectiveness of James's decision to involve veteran operators alongside federal law enforcement. Holding Emma again after 9 days of terror was indescribable. She recognized my voice and scent immediately, her crying subsiding as I held her close while Agent Chen documented her condition for legal proceedings. The physical reunion was overwhelming, but the emotional impact of seeing my daughter healthy, despite her ordeal, provided the first real relief I'd experienced since this nightmare began. The evidence recovered from Linda Garrett's facility exceeded everyone's expectations. Computer files contained detailed records of the network's operations across multiple states, including financial transactions, client communications, and coordination protocols for hiding children from legitimate custody orders. The information would enable prosecution of the entire criminal organization and recovery of children who'd been missing for months or years. Vanessa's arrest occurred 2 hours later at a truck stop in Montpelier, where she was waiting for transportation to the next phase of her escape plan. When Vermont State Police took her into custody, she was carrying false identification documents and over $20,000 in cash, along with detailed instructions for crossing into Canada, with forged documentation for herself and Emma. The interrogation revealed the full extent of Vanessa's delusions and planning. She genuinely believed she was saving Emma from abusive parents who were using Pentagon resources to cover up their crimes. Her connection to Derek Sullivan's network had begun months before Emma's birth, when she'd started researching ways to rescue her future niece from what she perceived as a dangerous situation. Vanessa's mental health evaluation, conducted by Dr. Amanda Foster, confirmed severe delusional thinking that had been developing for over a year. Her recent divorce had triggered paranoid episodes where she began seeing threats everywhere, particularly focusing on authority figures like James, who represented the power structures she believed were corrupt. Kidnapping Emma had become her way of fighting back against perceived injustice. The legal aftermath moved swiftly. Margaret Sinclair filed emergency motions to restore our custody rights, while prosecutors prepared federal charges against the entire network. Vanessa faced kidnapping, conspiracy, and child endangerment charges that carried potential sentences of 25 years to life, while Linda Garrett and her associates faced similar penalties for operating the hiding network. James's Pentagon situation remained complicated despite Emma's safe recovery. His use of unofficial military resources had violated multiple regulations, and Admiral Hayes made clear that his career in Navy leadership was finished. However, the successful resolution and overwhelming evidence of Vanessa's criminal behavior helped frame his actions as desperate parental instincts rather than professional misconduct. The media coverage shifted dramatically once the full scope of the criminal network became public. Instead of focusing on military family dysfunction, stories emphasized the sophisticated operation that had victimized multiple families across the country. James transformed from a questionable Pentagon official into a father who'd sacrificed his career to save his daughter from organized criminals. Emma's pediatric evaluation revealed she'd suffered no permanent physical harm during her ordeal, though child psychologists recommended ongoing monitoring for potential developmental impacts from the traumatic separation. The fact that she was only 3 months old when kidnapped actually worked in her favor, as she was too young to retain conscious memories of the experience. The broader investigation into Derek Sullivan's network continued expanding as more evidence surfaced. Federal prosecutors estimated they could file charges in over 40 cases across 12 states, with potential recovery of children who'd been missing for extended periods. Our nightmare had helped expose a criminal organization that had been destroying families nationwide. 2 weeks after Emma's recovery, as we began rebuilding our lives, we received a call that would provide the final piece of justice we'd been seeking. The call came from Thomas Crawford, Vanessa's attorney, with an offer that stunned everyone involved in the case. Facing overwhelming evidence and potential life imprisonment, Vanessa wanted to cooperate fully with federal prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence and psychiatric treatment, instead of maximum security incarceration. Her decision would provide the final pieces needed to dismantle Derek Sullivan's entire criminal network. Crawford explained that Vanessa's cooperation would include detailed testimony about the network's operations, financial records she'd maintained during her involvement, and identification of other parents who'd used Sullivan's services to hide children. Her insider knowledge could help recover dozens of missing children and prevent future kidnappings by exposing the organization's methods and safe house locations. The plea negotiation process was complex and emotionally charged. Part of me wanted Vanessa to face the full consequences of stealing Emma and putting our family through hell, but another part recognized that her cooperation could help other families avoid similar ordeals. Margaret Sinclair advised that accepting the plea would also eliminate the risk of a lengthy trial that would keep Emma's case in the public eye. Federal prosecutors offered Vanessa a 15-year sentence in a federal facility with mental health treatment programs, contingent on her complete cooperation with ongoing investigations. The deal required her to testify against Sullivan and his associates, provide detailed information about network operations, and assist in locating other hidden children. If she violated any aspect of the agreement, she would face the original charges carrying life imprisonment. Vanessa's debriefing sessions revealed the disturbing sophistication of Sullivan's operation. The network maintained detailed psychological profiles of potential clients, targeting parents going through divorces or custody disputes who showed signs of paranoid thinking or desperate circumstances. They specifically recruited clients with financial resources and legitimate grievances that could be exploited to justify criminal behavior. The recruitment process was insidious. Sullivan's associates would monitor family court proceedings, identify vulnerable parents, and approach them through online support groups or legal referrals. They'd gradually introduce the idea that the family court system was corrupt, and that extreme measures might be necessary to protect children from dangerous situations. By the time clients realized they were involved in criminal activity, they were already committed to hiding their children. Vanessa's financial records revealed she'd paid Sullivan over $35,000 for services that included evidence fabrication, legal coaching, safe house networks, and false identification documents. The premium package she'd purchased included psychological manipulation techniques for convincing children that their parents were dangerous, ensuring long-term compliance with hiding protocols. The most disturbing revelation was Sullivan's backup plan for clients who were captured or whose children were recovered. The network maintained detailed files on law enforcement officers, judges, and government officials involved in their cases, gathering personal information that could be used for intimidation or retaliation. James's Pentagon position had made our family a particular target for ongoing surveillance and potential harassment. Emma's recovery led to breakthroughs in 17 other active cases across the country, Vanessa's information helped locate 3 children who'd been missing for over a year, including a 4-year-old girl whose father had hidden her, using Sullivan's network after losing custody due to domestic violence convictions. The psychological damage to these older children was significant, requiring extensive therapy to overcome the trauma of extended separation from their legitimate guardians. James's Pentagon career was officially over, but the circumstances of his dismissal evolved as the full scope of the criminal network became clear. Navy leadership recognized that his actions, while violating regulations, had exposed a national security threat that could have compromised other military families. His security clearance was permanently revoked, but he avoided court-martial proceedings and received an honorable discharge with full benefits. The transition from Pentagon leadership to civilian life was challenging for James, but his experience and connections led to opportunities in private security consulting. Several defense contractors were interested in his expertise with military family security issues, especially given the national attention surrounding Emma's case. His new career would be different but potentially more rewarding than navigating Pentagon bureaucracy. My own recovery from the trauma took longer than I'd anticipated. Postpartum depression, combined with the psychological impact of Emma's kidnapping, required professional counseling and medical treatment. The constant fear that Vanessa or her associates might attempt retaliation made normal daily activities feel dangerous, even after the network's collapse. Emma's development proceeded normally despite her ordeal, though we maintained regular appointments with child psychologists to monitor for any delayed trauma responses. At 6 months old, she showed no obvious signs of lasting psychological damage, but we planned to continue professional monitoring throughout her early childhood to address any issues that might emerge. The legal proceedings against Sullivan's network continued for over a year. Federal prosecutors filed charges in 43 cases across 12 states, resulting in convictions that dismantled the entire organization. Sullivan himself received a life sentence without parole, while his associates received sentences ranging from 15 to 30 years, depending on their level of involvement. Linda Garrett's cooperation with investigators revealed that her facility had hidden over 60 children during the 3 years she'd operated the basement network. Some children had been reunited with legitimate guardians within days, while others had remained hidden for months while their cases moved through family courts. Her detailed records helped prosecutors understand the full scope of the organization's impact on families nationwide. The civil lawsuit against Sullivan's estate and associated properties provided some financial compensation for our legal expenses and the therapy Emma would need throughout her childhood. More importantly, the court-ordered dissolution of the network's assets helped fund victim services and law enforcement training programs designed to prevent similar operations in the future. 2 years after Emma's rescue, Vanessa was transferred to a federal psychiatric facility where she began intensive treatment for the delusional thinking that had driven her criminal behavior. Her progress reports indicated gradual improvement, but psychiatrists estimated she would require years of treatment before being considered for supervised release. The woman who'd once been my sister had become a stranger whose mental illness had nearly destroyed both our families. Congressional hearings on the Sullivan Network led to new legislation strengthening penalties for organized child trafficking and improving coordination between family courts and law enforcement agencies. Emma's case became a catalyst for reforms that would protect other families from similar criminal exploitation, giving meaning to the trauma we'd endured. Today, Emma is a healthy, happy toddler who loves playing with blocks and chasing our dog around the backyard. She calls James Daddy and me Mama, without any confusion about who her parents are, and she has no memory of the 9 days that changed our lives forever. Sometimes I watch her sleeping peacefully in her crib and remember how close we came to losing her permanently to people who believed their delusions justified stealing our daughter. The scars from our ordeal remain, but they've taught us that family bonds can survive even the most devastating attacks. James and I emerged stronger as a couple. Emma is thriving despite her traumatic start, and justice was served against the criminals who tried to destroy our lives. Sometimes the most important victories are simply bringing your child home safe and holding them close enough to remember that love always finds a way to overcome evil. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.